life, every day, late at night, not okay, all I want.
All right, so we are officially in January now, a couple of weeks. It seems like it's flown by. And now we're back with Brenna, right? We're taking a look at what is the real estate market doing? What are the numbers as we review the stats and the data that make up all of 2020? And we talk about what we're thinking 2021 might look like for our real estate market. So as usual, right, joined with Brenna Harper, the talented, the beautiful, as she shares with us the specific numbers. So Brenna, why don't you kind of chime in a little bit with, how you're feeling about 2020?
Yeah, well, as always, thank you for having me. I think if we look, and I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, can you see the update?
Yep, we've got it.
Perfect. So the first thing I kind of want to do is just talk really high level about what 2020 looked like. And I think it'll explain how most of us felt. So first of all, we ended 2020 with 2,200 active listings in all of Denver Metro. That is incredibly low. It's a 10-year low, actually. The National Association of Realtors says to be a balanced market that we would need about 30,000 homes. Most economists believe that's a little high for Denver, but even if we were looking at 20 or even 15,000 homes to be a balanced market, 2,200 is very low. So that was the first kind of extreme that we experienced. We also experienced the lowest interest rates that we have seen in several decades. So then that's another extreme that we're dealing with, accompanied by the highest number of homes sold in history.
And I don't want to gloss over that point, Brenna, right? When COVID first started coming around almost 12 months ago here in the United States, and things started shutting down, I had a number of conversations that were, oh my gosh, the market's going to crash. People are going to be losing their homes and my home's going to be worth half. So Say that again. We had a record number of real estate transactions occur.
Yep. The highest number of homes sold in at least recent history, if not ever, 7.2% higher than even 2019. And we all thought 2019 was a record-breaking year, a great year. So we have these extreme lows and these extreme highs going, which is what you're feeling as a buyer and a seller in this market, that it's very competitive, maybe even in some cases cutthroat, and ultimately not sustainable. And I know that Matt and I are going to talk a little bit more on that, but want to give you some highlights from December, and then we'll kind of circle back to what 2020 looked like and what may be happening in 2021. So in December, our days on market actually went up 8.9%. And when I'm just talking about all of these extremes, that sounds a little bit funny. But two things, most of that was in the attached the attached place. So like townhomes, condos, and everything. So we've talked about this before, but there's a little bit of a flight to the suburbs. So there's a little bit more activity happening or more listings happening in the attached space. So it would make sense that the days on market were longer. So when I go through, you'll see that the detached listings really did not change very much on days on market. That active or the attached kind of almost skewed that data a little bit. But what you'll also notice is days on market for December in a normal year was right on track. So even though it was considerably higher from just November, historically, it wasn't like it was so high. So we'll go through that a little bit, but just know that there's kind of two ways to look at that statistic, and definitely attached single family versus detached. There's some different stories going on there as well. Something else I thought was interesting was that 70% of homes went under contract for at or over their asking price. So that's that's a massive number. It makes sense. Again, there's 22 homes on the market, so supply and demand, lots of bidding wars going on. But that's a huge number of homes, and that's including, homes that may have been in an investment state or, sat on the market for a while. So 70% is one of the higher numbers we've seen. Typically, I think, in past years when we got up to 50%, we were like, oh my gosh, that's so incredible. And now we're 20% higher than that. So that just, I think, speaks to 2020 on the whole, as far as just being unprecedented, and just throwing some curveballs at us.
Yeah, gosh, I'd love to be back at just 50% of the homes go for at or over asking price instead of 70. That's
Yeah.
a massive number when we look at it. And it feels like the market has just gone just crazy. The values are just going up and up. That's a big driving factor when 70% of the homes are going at and over asking price. It's just going to drive that value up.
Yep. And in the 400 to 499,000 range, the list to sold price was 101.7%, sold to list price rather. So they're getting 101.7% of the list price when they sold. So that is, again, very high. And that's one metric that we're looking at, 400 to 499, but that's usually one of our stronger markets. And obviously it is right now. But anything over 100 is obviously incredibly, incredibly good, for sellers at least, but 101.7, that's big.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about an extra $4,000 to $5,500 in that price point.
Yep. Absolutely. Interestingly enough, though, this is our showing time data. So this shows us how many homes have been shown. The blue line being 2019, the orange line being 2020. So with the exception of our COVID crater, it's pretty darn close. So I just think that's so interesting that some of our trends with holidays, you can see like 4th of July weekend, even Thanksgiving weekend, there was a big dip in traffic. And then again, at the end of December, when we got into Christmas and New Year's, that was pretty consistent year over year. So Matt, do you want to talk at all about kind of what that shows and looks like?
Absolutely right. So one of the first indicators of a market shifting is the showing traffic. Now, if we would have just had this conversation in March and April where everything was getting shut down, that would be a big dramatic change and a big dramatic shift in the showings. What we found was that as it bounced back, the buyer demand did not really drop off. There's still a high demand for homes given the showings. So as we consistently are looking at the showing traffic, it's letting us know what are we seeing? Are things starting to slow down? Or can we be a little more aggressive in pricing as a seller or as a buyer, just to understand that of the 2,300 homes on the market, we still have as many buyers looking as we had a year ago when there was over double that.
Yeah.
So more people are going through fewer homes, and it's going to run into scheduling issues, right? As homes are blocked out and you're not able to overlap showings, right? A lot of different things are impacted here. And one of the reasons why I always love looking at this graph is y'all put it out.
Absolutely. Okay, and we're going to look at this again just quickly. This is our market snapshot, and it's detached and attached single family. So the green line is active, the blue line is pending, and the red light is sold. So as we've been talking about, pendings and actives just took a steep dive, but solds, I mean, they are down, but less of a curve, less of a steep drop off. So, that's kind of interesting. People are still buying, even though there's virtually nothing to buy. So again, that demand is still incredibly high.
Yeah, always interesting to see that green line that far below the red and blue line. Now, again, the green is the active,
Yep.
the red is the sold, the blue being the under contracts. To see it that far below for that long indicates just things that are coming on the market are disappearing. And the ones that are not going under contract that quickly or staying on the market, it's maybe a touch of an issue on pricing.
Yep.
Because every home's going to sell. It just depends if the condition matches the price.
Absolutely. I think you bring up a great point. Even though the market is so competitive and the inventory is so low, as a seller, especially, you have to remember that buyers are still more educated than they've ever been. So while you can price aggressively, you still have to price within the parameters of the market, or people aren't going to pay that. They're actually, psychologically more likely to pay higher when you price it correctly, and then it feels like more of a commodity, a hot commodity, than overpricing it and then saying, oh, well, that's too much money, I'm going to wait for it to come down. So there's definitely some psychology that goes into selling and pricing. But yes, you can be aggressive. No, you can't just pick whatever price you want for your home if you want it to sell.
Yeah, buyers are always sensitive to the price, much like anything else, because it's based on what else they've seen.
Yep.
So if your home is 10% more than the other homes that they've been looking at, and it has the same quality of finishes, the same features, they're going to actually try to buy the other one, even though they may have to pay 15% more for that home, right? It's an interesting piece. People will overpay sometimes when it's priced correctly, but they wouldn't have paid your price if you started there.
Yep.
So pricing it right the first time has a massive impact on your final sold price. So that old philosophy, well, if we start high, we can always come down. That works if I'm selling a used bicycle for Facebook Marketplace, right?
Yep.
It doesn't prove out as we look at real estate.
Yep, it becomes stale on the market, especially with how quickly things are using. If your home is on the market even just a couple of weeks in most price points in most counties, people immediately start to question what's wrong with it. And there might be nothing wrong with it, but you don't want to stigmatize your property just because you missed the mark on pricing. So I think that's just a really important thing to keep in mind. And so what I want to show you here is, so this is detached single family only. And you'll see that it's pretty close to attached and detached combined. But it's a completely different story when you look at attached. So again, just to flip back here, detached, you can see the green line actives, how far removed it is from solds and under contracts or pendings. And then we move up to attached single family, and it's higher than solds and right in there with pending. So it is a different market in the attached realm than it is the detached realm. And that's what I was talking about with days on market, and that combined average and why that skewed it a little bit. So just be aware, if you're looking at a condo or a townhome, it is different than detached, and you just have to know that and plan accordingly.
Well, what a great opportunity for a potential first-time home buyer. Again, as prices have gone where they have over the last 7-8 years, you hear frequently people lament, gosh, how am I ever going to buy a home? How are my kids ever going to be able to afford a home here with the prices going the way that they are? And we look at the attached homes, and they're not flying off the market at the same pace. So we might have the opportunity to really get in to the right home at a price we don't have to overpay for.
Yep.
Now, that might mean you have to buy that home before you get into your ideal home. Maybe you really want to be in a detached home, but sometimes getting your foot in the door becomes that springboard to get into the next home. Because if you can ride the market appreciation over a couple of years, have the bigger down payment into that detached home, you might put yourself in a phenomenal spot to get to that next home, really by starting with something that might not have been your first choice.
Yep. Don't keep paying someone else's rent, right?
Hey, you're paying a mortgage one way or another, whether it's your mortgage or your landlord's mortgage. You're paying it one way or another.
Absolutely. I think we've talked about active listings and the lack of them a considerable amount, but this just shows you on the graph. This time last year, we were at 4,500, and the year before that, we were at 5,300. So we are, again, very, very depleted in those active listings.
So we need more homes. We need more
We need more
homes.
homes.
If you've been on the fence about selling your home because you want to move to Arizona, well, now is a good time to do that.
Absolutely. And we talk about month supply of inventory. So like I mentioned, the National Association of Realtors says 30,000 homes. So that's about 6 months of inventory. So we're under a month. In the combined detached and attached, we're at about half of a month, so 2 weeks. But then again, if we look here in the detached single family, we're at about a week and a half of inventory. And then obviously we're almost at a month, so that's a lot in the attached single family space. So obviously we are very depleted there as well, but there is a considerable difference again.
Yeah, it moves very, very fast. And the good homes are moving fast, and the homes that are overpriced will sit around a little bit.
Yep. So this is what I talked about at the beginning as well, days on market combined, or days in multiple listing service, where realtors put your listings. So 24.5 days you do see is up from November, from 22.5 days. Historically, still very, very low. But last December, it was at 40 days. And the December before that, it was 37. So yes, we are up 8.7% from November, but we're still extremely, extremely low. And then if you look here, detached, we didn't move at all. So we're even days on market. And then attached is where we went up. And that's just because there's a little bit more inventory, a little bit more buildup, if you will, being a relative term.
Yeah. So, right, again, for sellers, if your home's been on the market for 2 weeks, that's okay. Home selling in an hour is not the norm.
Right.
We need to give it a little bit of time as we go through sometimes to get enough people to go through. But again, if the average is right there in the 20s, being there for a couple of days is not the end of the world, right? You're still ahead of the average.
Absolutely. Well, to circle back on kind of what 2020 brought us and what to expect in 2021, I went to an economic summit. I guess it's been a couple weeks now. And one of the economists mentioned that he thought we had kind of peaked out at the number of homes that could be sold in Denver Metro in 2020. So we weren't going to get any higher than that. Now, keep in mind what we said. We had the highest number of homes sold in recent history, but that freaked out a lot of people, and it freaked out a lot of people that are in the industry and understand stats. So I wanted to kind of chat with you about it, because I think when you hear that, you're like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? Is this a horrible time? But it just means that it's not going to continue to skyrocket. It might plateau. It might be exactly the same. It might be like 2019 or 2018, which were all wonderful years as far as great investment and, a good market. It just means that the pace and the extremes that we were at in 2020 are not sustainable.
Yeah, it's hard to envision sustaining this pace for years. This has been an unusual, right, an asterisk year when we look back at the record book to say, well, look what was going on in the world at that time. So again, the numbers are part of the story. It's never the entirety. So, if we sell a few less homes next year, this year, the following year, that's not the worst thing when it comes to your home's value or whether or not it's a good decision. A lot of homes being sold is simply an indication of how many people need to make a move. So more people needing to make a move doesn't necessarily correspond with the values going up and up and up. Because if we have more inventory, well, demand is going to be impacted to the point of outside factors. But if we have more inventory, demand stays the same. That's going to drop the values. If we have less inventory, demand staying the same, well, that's going to increase the value there. So overall, when I hear we're not going to sell as many homes in 2021, not terribly concerned about that factor as a homeowner. Now, for real estate agents, fewer homes, fewer transactions impacts the income a little bit directly, right? But it's still not going to be a big enough number to have an overall impact on that side of it. we still have a lot of real estate agents and the same number of homes roughly that get sold every year. So for the homeowner, for the consumer, still nothing to be terribly concerned about, as we had a healthy market in the Denver area, even with coronavirus and the political unrest and the civil unrest that we had through this year.
Absolutely. And again, it's not like the bottom is going to fall out, or that's at least not what we're expecting. It's just that it's not going to continue to skyrocket. So there's a big difference there. Another factor is that the builders just cannot build fast enough or cost effectively enough to really solve the inventory problem, because there's a lot of builders that would love, people say, well, why don't they build homes for more of that entry level price? Well, they're really struggling with it because of labor and because of material costs, and also just the process of getting land and getting permits and everything like that. Their costs are so high that even their base level is coming in at higher than an entry level, just strictly so they can make any kind of profit.
Yeah, very tough on the builders to build the entry level stuff. When we look at the price of land, the price of real estate, it has gone up as well. So just to purchase the land goes up. Colorado is not the least expensive place to live. The values have gone up. So your labor force is being paid more to keep up with the cost of living. Your limitations on supply, right? When the coronavirus, which is worldwide, is impacting supply chains, and it impacts lumber, it impacts steel, it impacts concrete, and the availability and the readiness of those materials, that all impacts the pricing. The pricing tends to go up. So again, would be fantastic if they could. They simply just can't make the numbers work that way to build a $150,000 home.
Absolutely. I think something else to keep in mind, as a professional, or even just a seller that may be nervous by, kind of that blanket statement, is think about how many buyers had to pull out of this market because they didn't want to compete at that level, or, they just didn't find something that they liked that checked all their boxes because there's such low inventory, that would love a few more options than one a weekend. So I think if you are, wanting to sell your home, it's still a great time. And I think if you want to buy a home, money has never been cheaper. Obviously, Denver is a great place. The Economist said that Denver's real estate is still the number one industry. So it's still a great investment, even though it's competitive.
Yeah, and for the folks that are waiting to buy for the market to drop and prices to go down, we're probably never going to see prices where they were 4 years ago. So when I heard somebody say 4 years ago, well, I'm going to wait for the market to drop and then I'm going to buy, the market's exponentially grown and it's more expensive now than it was then. So even if you theoretically overpaid 4 years ago for a piece of property, you're still sitting pretty well today. The challenge with waiting to time the market is you only know that it's changed after it's happened. So timing the market is a tougher piece. So you want to look at the reasons why you're purchasing a home. If you're looking to purchase it strictly as an investment, and I want to say strictly because that means you're not going to be living in the property, well, then you want to buy it at the right price today. Banking on appreciation, going one way or another, is how a lot of speculators got into trouble when it came to the real estate market 15 plus years ago, because they were buying with the hopes that the market was going to appreciate. The market didn't, right? So if you're not buying strictly as an investment, well, then we're determining what is the quality of life? What do I get out of this piece of property? I've outgrown the space that I'm in because, I've got more kids now, or I have to work from home, or I have to school from home. Great. Things have maybe changed. And that's a driving factor for most people as to why they're purchasing real estate. the real estate on the back end becomes a good investment, but it's not strictly an investment for that purpose. It's a quality of life. It's those decisions that typically drive people buying real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point.
Good. So you've wrapped up on the stats. I'd like to hear kind of your perspective about 2020 and what you're looking forward to for 2021. It's a new year. It's a new calendar. So why don't you share with us a little bit about that on both sides?
Yeah, I think a lot of good things came out of 2020, I think, in spite of everything, both personally and professionally. Obviously, it was a crazy year, but it was a great year as far as business goes. So definitely appreciative of that. From an industry standpoint, I think we had to do so much, being innovative and getting things done and pushing things through that maybe we wouldn't have before, that I'm looking forward to kind of reaping some of that reward. So one of the things that happened was we were able to push through the remote online notary legislation. So as of December 31st of 2020, we got that passed. So that means that we can or will be able to soon do remote online notary, or basically e-closings, with some lenders. So that's been something that the title industry and real estate have been working on for a long time. And the legislation has just been kind of digging their heels in, and out of necessity in 2020, they kind of eased up a little bit, and then we were able to get this pushed through. So still working out some of the semantics and how all of that is going to work with, licensing and different things like that. But we made huge steps there. So I'm excited for that, different opportunities for people in different situations, different zip codes, that they are able to do that and still get great, high level, safe transactions happening. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for hopefully some normalcy. I would love to see more people. We'll see with as we roll into this year, with some things hopefully settling down, being able to see people in person. I think something I learned in 2020 is, as much as we can do on the computer and Zoom and everything, people still want that human interaction, and they still want those phone calls versus text, and they still want to meet in person versus Zoom. And there's definitely times when that makes sense, and I think we'll continue to use that moving forward, but that people really do want that personal connection. That's my favorite part of my job. I definitely missed it in 2020 of that human interaction. And so I'm looking forward to that, and just being able to help people on a more personal level.
Yeah. Without a doubt, as I look back at 2020, for me, it became very obvious that we're all in the same storm, so to speak, as far as coronavirus is worldwide. It's not one part of the globe. It's not one part of our demographic. It's not like it hit one sect. Ultimately, we were not all in the same boats, so to speak, and this impacted some people at a much bigger level. And thankfully, I feel very fortunate and very blessed that you and I have been minimally impacted as far as we were still able to work. We were healthy up until recently. We got sick here as January started. Don't know if it was coronavirus, may have been, may not have been, but quarantined and did what we were supposed to do to stay away, but stayed relatively healthy. Our son is healthy, so excited about that. Looking forward to some things for 2021 as we look at getting back into some more face-to-face conversations, some more social interactions, right? Seeing people in the stands at sporting events, having kids being able to play soccer or hockey or baseball or do their dance recitals or whatever it is that the kids are doing, being able to get back to that, because I feel like this really did rob a lot of kids of some very vital years I would like to see that coming back. So excited. We're not out of the woods yet. This is still going to be an impact here for our lives, but absolutely, we are closer to the end of it than when we started almost a year ago.
Absolutely. I think, on some level, we all kind of hoped at the stroke of midnight, the clouds would lift and everything would go back to the way it was. But I think we're moving in the right direction, just maybe not as quickly as probably most of us would like.
Well, I think everyone would agree. We'd like this to have been over about 12 months ago. But that's not the reality of where we're at. However, we can still persevere and move forward. Now, Brenna, you shared something with me about an organization that had a massive goal for last year to donate $1 million to specific charities and individuals, and they were able to actually raise and donate over $4 million. Yeah. And that's huge. And that to me speaks so high of just the giving nature of individuals, because when people are in need, humans will step up and help. And I love hearing those stories, and I'd love to hear more of those stories. So anybody that's watching, if you have any more stories like that, please share. I'd love to hear them. I really would. And I'd love to share them out so more people are hearing those stories.
Absolutely. I think one of my favorite sayings that I think sometimes can even bite you in the butt is, what you focus on expands. And I think 2020 was a really easy year to focus on the negative. And I've even found myself in that state of what's going to happen next, or what didn't go my way. And then that's all that you see, and that's all that you focus on. So something that I really want to do in 2021 is focus on the good and look for the helpers. I think, isn't that what Mr. Rogers said, right? Look for the helpers.
I must have missed that episode.
Okay. Well, it's a good one regardless. So, I think just kind of changing the lenses a little bit, and there's always going to be the negative, but if we can focus on the positives, then we'll see more of it. And that's definitely what I want to focus on in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So, Brenna, phenomenal. Thank you so much again for sharing the stats, what happened in 2020 in our real estate market, what did December look like. Again, we're going to be doing this monthly as we review the numbers, because we want to be the source of information that you come to for what is really going on. The news outlets and that, they are typically getting it wrong, and they're even further delayed than what we're looking at typically. So a lot of misinformation. We want to be the source for good, credible information as it relates to the real estate market. So again, I appreciate y'all watching. If you've got specific questions, there's interviews you want us to do, please let us know what interests you so that we can get those scheduled for future. All right. Thanks, Brenna.
You're welcome. We'll see you later.
All right. Bye, y'all.